Hello. I'm often getting questions from students who are looking for PhD positions in Norway or in Europe in general. And here I specify some points, more like my own personal thoughts. So, for PhD in Norway or in Europe, do you qualify? First of all, do you qualify for the program in Norway? Because what you need is to have a good grades and a number of hours and a diploma which corresponds to master in Norway. Did you check the requirements? Do you know how to check it? Maybe you can check with university programs whether your master from another country qualifies, whether your grades from another country are good enough. Because I heard from people from Russia or Iran that sometimes they have some difficulties to prove that their grades or diploma are equivalent the one in Norway. Then talking about say specific country, specific city. Do you need to be in a specific city or in a whole country, or you can choose? Of course, the more choice you have, the more chances you have, because positions appear here and there, and if you focus on one city, you limit your chances. If you focus on a whole country or whole Europe, you have more chances. Another thing, if you ready to start a job, again, if it's a specific city or country and you cannot go due to family reason or some other reason to another country, you need to stay there, then are you open for any other jobs? Because if a suitable PhD position is not available, maybe you can consider something else temporary, like a research assistant or engineer, until the opportunity opens. Also in Norway there is an option, a Doctor of Science, which means you can work with other contracts for a long time, several years, publish papers, and graduate. Instead of PhD, you get a Doctor of Science. Next question is, did you prepare nice CV, motivation letter, and 3 to 5 reference letters? And it would be nice if you use it based on example, a positive example, somebody who get a similar job, somebody who come from same background than you and get a job of kind of jobs that you like. For example, somebody come from China and get a job in Norway as a PhD position. If you're also from China, it will be a good example to follow. And then what is your field of expertise and how flexible you are? Again, you must stay in your field, or you can consider some other topics. Next thing is to know where to check for job announcements, because there are several websites like Job Norge or Job Norge, then Web Recruiter and Finn, Finn. So this is a 3 major sources in Norway: Job Norge, Web Recruiter, and Finn. And then personal networks, of course. If you know somebody, you can ask if there are any positions available. You can follow social networks, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. Often positions are advertised there. And if you know how to contact people directly, the people you're interested, it's probably most efficient way. Even before the position is advertised, you can start making personal contacts. And later, when it is advertised, you send application. It will be easier for interview and everything else. So direct personal contacts help. Advertisement of positions, you have to know how to choose, and should be open-minded about topic and at least city, or even better, at least to be open-minded about country. Ask yourself why somebody will hire me. What do I know, what I can offer, and how I can make a place of a work better, what I can bring with me. So why somebody? It's not just because you have a master degree, somebody will offer you a PhD position. Positions are not waiting for somebody. Often there are 40 people applying for one position, sometimes there are 140. So there is a competition, and if you want to get the job, you need to win the competition. So good and excellent grades from master project will help, good letters of support, nicely written CV, try without typos, nicely written motivation letter also without typos, and what is a culture, a local culture, how do you approach people here? If you say, hello dear sir, I hope your day is great, and here I am, and then you send 2 pages of motivation letter, many will not read after the first line. So you have to make a motivation letter correspond to local culture. Make a motivation letter short and clear and based on traditions. Dear Mister, maybe not, especially if it's a woman. Use a doctor or professor. The person you're contacting is likely professor or has a PhD, or maybe both. If the website states that the person is professor, you can find it, then call her or him professor. If say something else, maybe he's not a professor yet, so you can most likely the person has MD or PhD, then you can call them doctor. It is simply professional, not Mr., not Miss. Then I get a specific question about World Education Services and whether or not it helps in Norway. I don't know. I have no idea. I think you can ask this in a program, contact specific PhD program, university. They will know whether your diploma will be equivalent in Norway, even if you have this World Education Services approved. I don't know. Again, you can find somebody in a similar situation who moved from the same country and get approved their degrees in Norway. It's probably easy way. Also the rules change, so another approach is to ask the university directly. How can I prove myself as an ideal candidate for PhD or any other position? I think show interest and motivation, and show that you have skills or you willing to learn what is needed. Show that you ready to go extra step if needed. Be polite, friendly, professional. You can watch some movies about professional people. You can ask me, I can suggest in person what kind of movies to watch. While waiting for such an opportunity, people think that in Norway they can get some support from social services now. I'm not sure. I never used the services, and I don't know anybody who used them, so better not. What about volunteer position? Again, I'm against volunteer position. If you don't have money to survive, you need to get a job and pay your bills. When you have some possibility to survive, then you can decide whether you can be volunteer or not. But volunteer to get a job, I never heard about it in my network. I know people have this idea. If you have successful examples, you can do it. I know people talk about it. I never heard anybody get a job after being volunteer. So try to get a job and be paid for what you are doing. I would not advise to be a volunteer, and when I was talking to some people in the administration, they also against it. But it is true that biomedical market is getting saturated, and the better you have CV, the more chances you have, I think. Next question is, what are opportunities in Norway after completing a PhD? Other industries recruiting PhD holders. Again, I'm not sure so much about industry, but what I heard that industry in Norway is somehow limited. So after PhD, very often people get a job in university as a postdoc or researcher. Whoever goes to industry again, it's still possible, but I'm not sure the PhD will be an advantage. Maybe master will be enough. For PhD in Norway, often when you go to industry, you still need to speak Norwegian language, or you have to be a very high profile candidate with a high specialist with a very specific knowledge. Maybe in this case you have a chance. Next question. Also, I heard that the demand for postdocs is very high in Norway. If so, what kind of topic I can choose in, say, in biomedical research? So for me, demand for postdocs is not anything high. Yes, there are positions for postdocs time to time, but like everything else, there is competition. The better CV you have, the more chances you get a job. What topics? I can think about bioinformatics, neuroscience, immunology, cell biology. This is what I can think about, because this is based on my experience and what I see my colleagues are doing. As a summary, I would say direct contacts, direct applications are most helpful to find a job. When you approach people before submitting the documents or through official websites. If you are flexible regarding job title, topic and city, it's definitely increased chances. And some tips about CV, for example. So first of all, make sure there's a zero or close to zero typos, because this is something that makes a bad impression, including spaces, not too many double spaces, not too many zero spaces. Personal information, education, experience, okay, good topics. Research projects with methods, skills, okay, good topic. Publications, if it's after master and you go for PhD, if you don't have any publications, it's okay. If you have some, one or two, it's okay. If you have like, say, 5 publications or 8 publications, it's rather exceptional, and then people will think, is it a good quality publication or not so good, or you are a genius. Of course, some people are genius and successful and very productive and efficient, and they can have many papers even after master degree, but it's not typical. So if I see application of a candidate who has 5 papers after master, I would pay attention to it. Why? What it means. And especially if it's two papers as a last author and 2 papers as a first author. Okay, in Europe usually you are last author when you are professor or group leader, but almost never as a master student. What I will do, I will check this candidate if I'm interested, of course, from 140 people, and then I see a candidate with 5 publications. Maybe I get interested, I will check it in PubMed. So if I see this 5 papers in PubMed, because maybe it's in the journals I never heard about, which is also suspicious. If only find the 1 paper in PubMed, okay, what about other 4 papers? Are they not good enough to be in PubMed? What is the quality of a journal then? I will check a person in ResearchGate. If you have a ResearchGate profile, it's good. Then I will check also in Google Scholar, for example, to see what papers are really yours, what is the citation for every paper. Because if I don't know the journal, maybe I can see how people react to it, how often the papers are cited. So if I find you in Google Scholar, LinkedIn, Google ResearchGate, it's probably a positive sign for me. If I see that you know some people that I know in LinkedIn, well, maybe also a positive sign. Then some master students graduate from master school, they list conferences. Okay, you list, for example, 8 or 10 conferences. What does it mean? It doesn't mean you present 8 times. You had the poster. Was it the same topic? Was it different topic? Was it an oral presentation? How often Norwegian students have oral presentations? I would say between 0 and 3 times, but 8 times, 10 times, again, maybe you're a genius, or maybe you overuse your time going to conferences. Even if they are free or in your city, it takes time to prepare. So see if the conferences are really useful to put in a CV. If you just attend, I don't think they're useful. If you had the oral presentation and really you present, not your professor or your colleague, yeah, then you can put it. It will help. But if somebody present and your name is in the abstract, no, I would not put it in your CV. Maybe I'm just envy because I didn't go to conferences as a master student, but based on what I see in the local students, I would not appreciate so much if you put too many conferences, and especially like on the same topic and in such a limited time. I would think that, okay, when did you do your research if you go to conferences all the time, and plus you need to study as a master student. So besides conferences, also, like, for example, next can be conferences and workshops. Okay, you already mentioned conferences before, why you mention again conferences? If it's a workshops, how they're different, again, how useful they are. Did you learn a particular skill? Then you can put it in a skill section. Did you learn get a certificate? Then you can put it in certificate section. But why mention like conferences twice? One with presentations and one with workshops. Overall, I would say it's a little bit suspicious if after a master degree person has too many papers, especially if they're not in PubMed, and too many conferences and too many workshops. Because the question is, how did you do your project and study? Because during bachelor and master courses you also have to study. Other certificates in a CV, you can put a section about certificates, great. But if you put a certificate that you know cell culture or immune methods, maybe it's too much, because you can just mention it in a skill section. Yeah, you know cell culture, you know some methods, mention it in the skills. You don't have to prove certificate for every skill you use, especially if you have papers in PubMed to prove that you use a method. Certificate for English, good, because English is very important, both oral and to be able to speak, and to able to write and to read, of course. Computer certificates, well, if it's just a computer, what does it mean? Is it specific software that you mention? Is it specific like coding? You can be more clear what means a computer. It doesn't give any information to me. If it's skills about computer knowledge, well, you can put it in the skills section again. Sometimes people put references in the CV, which is good. So references, nice to have 3 to 5 people who a person who hires you will contact. Usually is not a human resources, is a group leader or project leader who will contact references, emails, phone number, name, position, university, city, country, all this important. Maybe make sure that references are mentioned in a similar way, so they not appear like very different random information. There's some sort of consistency. And some final remarks. So I see that for some people it's not obvious how to use first name or last name with doctor, with professor. So I would say the rule is you say doctor and then surname or last name, professor and the last name. It's normal. I would not use it with the first name. If you are not sure which name is first and which name is last, you can put both names or 3 names, but it will be helpful if you can understand what name is last, and say professor and then last name, doctor and the last name. One trick is you can see in PubMed how these people publish, because PubMed gives last name full and first name like as a 1 letter. So for me it will be appropriate to say Dr. Oksanich, but time to time I receive Dr. Valentin, and it is funny at first, but if person insists calling me Dr. Valentin, then well, I will try to explain that it's not the correct way. Plus I was told that in correspondence, if a person sign a letter with 1 name, you can just call person with his name. You don't have to always repeat professor, 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 doctor, doctor, doctor. When person respond to you and use just simply 1 name, you can use this name. It's acceptable. So because I'm saying it, it's kind of important. In Norway, when you send the application, you need to figure out what is a person's first name and last name. This is a beginning of your application, and you don't want to put a wrong impression from the beginning. You can talk to some colleagues who may be more experienced than you. They can explain their understanding of the situation. So if it is hard to distinguish, you can just put 2 names. So you don't need to guess which name is the first, which name is the last. For motivation letter, also sometimes I see a lot of text, but it would make a little bit lively, let's say, if you put in the beginning your name, like dear committee, to whom you apply, or if you know that you apply to one specific person, you can mention this person name. And then you can say that your name, like my name is, and I'm applying for, make some sort of clear introduction, who you are and to whom you address the motivation letter, not just have 1 page of a text. And after this, yes, you introduce yourself, you introduce, you mention a person or a committee that you are talking to, and then you say that, okay, I studied this and this, and I learned this and that, and I'm applying for a job because it's interesting for me, and it help in the future, and it fit my expectations and interests, whatever people normally say. About motivation letter and CV, really try to find all small typos, ask your friends to proofread, use Microsoft Word, use Grammarly. It's a free software that finds all the typos, double check it. It's good to have it's never perfect, but close to perfect documents. and get examples and comments from people who already got the jobs that you're applying, because these people who got jobs recently, they would know the best how they prepared documents, how they had the interviews, and how did they get a job. So it's okay for now. I think since I'm getting more and more questions, I will record more and more videos. I have this information recorded in Russian since 2010, because since that time I have a lot of questions, so I summarized all the answers in one website. And now, since I'm getting questions in English over and over, so I think I will summarize all the answers in English, so it will be later easier to just forward people to the website and check these videos. Okay, bye bye.